Well, thank you all for coming this evening. And this is the last performance of a unique show. And the idea is welcome to my living room, but also welcome to my set, theatre set, as well as art installation. And the whole idea of this installation, well, I was trying to think about orders of hierarchy. What's the most important thing? So we first started off with a space. Last year I came across this space and I thought, this is a great space. And the terrace format was quite interesting, and the function of the space was also quite interesting in terms of being a multifunctional space, an art space, a theatre space, as well as corporate function, event centre, etc. Now, starting off with the space, I spoke to Emmeline, and then from that we established some ideas about how we could develop this artist in residency idea for the next year or so. And this size of this terrace is very similar to the house that I live in at the moment, which is the Peggy Glanville Hicks house. She's a composer, and she left her house to the future of Australian composers. And I quite often think about Peggy. Every day I think about her in the house, and I wonder what she did every day. Like, I wonder what her routine was. And
drink a lot of whiskey.
Yeah. And when she bought the house, I kind of wondered whether she knew that would be the last place that she would live in. And in addition to that, she's left this amazing legacy for the future of Australian composers. But in addition to that, when I look at the space, I see there's a lounge room, there's a piano, so not too different to the setup in here. There's a lounge room. This could have been a lounge room, and when you look at the baby grand piano, you think, well, that could be in a concert hall, but it could also be in a living room. When you look over there, you see a vibraphone, and you think, well, the vibes could. It's not usual to have vibes in a lounge room, but if you're John Dewhurst, well, that may be a bit more common. Then you look at, there's like a bit of a set up with the orange in the background there. That kind of reminds me of my childhood growing up and always having the back door is always illuminated because you've got this spotlight outside lighting up the backyard, and that kind of reminds me a little bit of that. And then in addition to that, there's the sculptural feature. The actual sculpture is made from wool, and that also reminds us of the home. So the key thing here is how objects, space and function continually overlap in our everyday experience and landscape, and how, for example, when we might go to the theatre, there might be something that reminds us of our aunt's place. There might be something that reminds us. All of these ideas and memories are happening continually without us even recognising that it's happening. And so the idea of this was to bring about some of these elements. Like, for example, the LED lights which are in the installation here, you wouldn't expect to have that at home, and you probably wouldn't see that on a theatre set either, because theatre lighting tends to be just gels, because the colour mix which is available for LEDs is quite limited if you're trying to paint a whole colour scene. However, you'll see the whole range of colours which are available for LEDs in that particular cycle display. So in addition to that, there's a bit of theatre happening, like you're wondering, how does Plato's cave... well, before I get to Plato, I'd just like to mention another association with space, architecture and light. Each of the objects in this room have been surveyed, and we know that with music there's pitch. A pitch is a sound, like it could be, just like any kind of sound. And so we know that we have different, like a length of, if you have a length of string, you can pluck that string and it will vibrate, and that's a pitch. And then what we do is, if we have another string, which might be smaller or taller, so I've used the idea of string, or in particular height in this case, to represent a pitch. So, for example, the baby grand piano, when it's lifted up, it's 1.5 metres tall. The ceiling is 3 metres tall. So when we have 1.5 to 3, those music people amongst you will know you have an interval, which would be 1 to 2. Or if you inverse that, it's 2 to 1, which is a perfect octave when you're looking at the pitch. So similarly, I consulted a chart of all of these integers and ratios of intervals, and that became the pitch material for the actual composition. And in addition to that, the width of the space became the time interval information for which informed the music. And then in addition to that, the music which Roland plays and also John plays can be interchanged, and they actually do a jazz improvisation of the earlier, you'll hear, of the earlier content which they perform, which is prescribed. They then jam those two, some of these ideas into the final piece. So that's the musical ideas. There was also some other things which I'd like to continue exploring because I work as a lighting designer and I'm also a music composer. But in particular, there's a language of light and there's also a language with music. So, like for example, the intensity of the light could be related to the dynamics, etc. So there's many interpretations which can occur. Similarly, within our memories, there are many interpretations which can occur with what we're thinking. So now, in addition to that, there's Plato. All right, so with Plato, Plato's cave allegory, basically, does anyone know what Plato's cave allegory is? No? What's that, Roland? Yes, of course you do, you're the artist. But basically what happens is there's a group of prisoners, like you're all prisoners in here in my lounge room, and the group of prisoners, they see these shadows which are from the street, and they think that these shadows are these evil, scary monsters. And so they begin to think that this is really what their future is going to be. They're just going to be attacked by these evil monsters, and that will be the end of them. But then a prisoner is let out, and he goes outside, and he realises that there really are no monsters out there. They're just people, and they're just shadows from the people walking in the street. And so when this particular prisoner comes back to tell this news to the other prisoners are so entrenched in the fact that there's monsters out there that they kill the prisoner. So again, the idea is again of how we get caught in our daily thinking. And in addition to that, the prisoners are actually strung. They're strung up in this particular prison cell. So upstairs, what you'll experience afterwards is at the break of this kind of it is Plato's cave, but it's a different kind of take on Plato's cave allegory. And when we go upstairs, I'll explain that. So at that, we'll turn off the bright lights and begin with the ambience.